Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Snort, 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 Kogan. Drip, snort, snort.
We have one news story for today that I'd like to cover, and then we're going to get to like shout outs and interaction. The one news story is kind of interesting though. So you may have remembered, maybe you don't, but you may remember that Naughty Dog, that's right, the game developer that used to make games such as Crash Bandicoot, but now has moved on from games like Uncharted to focus pretty much solely on the Last of Us franchise recently. Well, they were supposedly making, or their main focus was supposed to be on a standalone multiplayer game in the realm of the Last of Us universe. If you can remember 2-3 years ago, I think it was like 3-4 years ago at this point, The Last of Us 2 released. And it was supposed to have multiplayer, and it didn't. And Naughty Dog told us, oh, don't worry, it's coming. So we all bought this game for $60, expecting the same full experience we got with The Last of Us 1, which was a story-based campaign and multiplayer. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and then finally Naughty Dog came out and said, oh, so just so you know, we decided not to give you the multiplayer. What we're going to do is we're going to make our own standalone game because people seem to want it so much, and we'd like to put more effort into it and make a whole big standalone kind of multiplayer universe, okay? So in reality, it was a bait and switch. The funny part about that was no one remembers that. People tend to forget that they promised that this game had a multiplayer mode. The Last of Us 2, that is. And for some reason, no one's calling out Naughty Dog for this. No one's saying, no, you owed us this. Why did we not get it? So anyway, they're now developing this standalone multiplayer game that I believe they were just going to call Factions or Factions 2. We're not even sure because I don't think they even really officially named it. So this is what they're working on, okay? But we've been waiting for information about it, and what's happened? Well, they re-released The Last of Us Part 1 as The Last of Us 1 on modern consoles and PC. They released a television show earlier this year that was popular on HBO Max. But there's still no information about this dang multiplayer game. So what's going on? What are they doing over there at Naughty Dog right now? Well, a story leaked, I believe it was Bloomberg that actually cracked the story. But actually, what's funny about it is, as soon as Bloomberg cracked the story, all of a sudden, Naughty Dog actually came out officially with their statement about this, okay? So the story that Bloomberg cracked was, they heard that basically this game is in development hell, that it's not doing well at all, that they've kind of gone back to the drawing board 1 or 2 times on it, and there's now an effort to refocus the company's efforts towards something else because the game is not doing the good, okay? So Bloomberg kind of reported that, and then all of a sudden, Naughty Dog comes out with this official statement. I'm going to read it. I actually have it on my phone here, word for word. The Last of Us fans, we know many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about our The Last of Us multiplayer game. See, they don't have a name for it yet. We're incredibly proud of the job our studio has done thus far, but as development has continued, we've realized what is best for the game is to give it more time. Our team will continue to work on the project as well as other games in development, including a brand new single-player experience. We look forward to sharing more soon. We're grateful to our fantastic community for your support. Thank you for your passion for our games that continues to drive us. So, in other words, their entire focus was on this game. This was the one game they were working on. They had promised everyone this was the game they were working on, and this was the game they were going to put out next because they didn't deliver this with The Last of Us 2 several years ago. By the way, it's 3-4 years later, and we've now decided that we want to reprioritize. So we're now going to work on another single-player game, and this game is delayed indefinitely. And there's all kinds of different theories about this. Some people are saying they feel that maybe they bit off more than they could chew, that having the multiplayer mode Factions in the original Last of Us game was a small undertaking, or, for example, the multiplayer modes in Uncharted games as well were a much smaller undertaking that were easier to handle. But when you're trying to make an entire game out of it, that was too much. Like, they bit off more than they could chew. Or another theory, that when they decided to make this full-fledged multiplayer game, this was amidst, 3-4 years ago, the height of these free-to-play games that were games as a service games that were doing well, right? But what has happened in the last few years is you've seen those games now fail. Games like Slam City or Knockout, what was it? Knockout City, Knockout Kings, whatever it was called, the volleyball one, among others. There's like 4 or 5 games as a service games that released and just flopped and are gone. They're already, you know, just put them in history books. So it very much could be that Naughty Dog at first saw a dollar sign saying, ooh, if we make a whole multiplayer game like those, maybe we can have an endless revenue stream forever, and we can have people doing microtransactions and everything in the game. And then, that's right, it wasn't Slam City, it was Rumbleverse. Thank you, Amplitude. Rumbleverse. It was Rumbleverse and Knockout City and a couple other games. There's like 3 or 4 at least of these games as a service games that have absolutely failed recently. So what's funny about this is, even Naughty Dog, this is Naughty Dog, supposedly one of the tippity-top game developers, is essentially saying even we don't see the future of an all-multiplayer style game like this, and we want to go back to making narrative-based games. So it sounds like they had a lot of confidence, and now somehow that confidence has been diminished to the point where they're like, oh, well, we can't just focus on that anymore, we got to make other stuff. But to me, again, the thing that stands out in my head, still to this day, is that this game, this Last of Us multiplayer game, was supposed to be in The Last of Us 2. We all bought a game with the expectation it was coming. They promised it was. And then they changed their story later on in the year with the excuse that we're making a standalone game. And now they're basically saying, oh, by the way, we're not making the standalone game, at least not now. We're going to make other narrative-based games again. So is this not the ultimate bait and switch? Buy our game on the premise that you're going to get the content we promised later. Okay, we're not giving you the content now because we're promising you we're actually going to make it even better by doing a full-fledged game. Oh, by the way, now it's years later. Most people don't care anymore, so we're just going to forget about the whole thing and move on and do other games to make money again. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty crazy to me. That again, everyone seems to be giving Naughty Dog the pass. It's like Naughty Dog is the new Nintendo, where everyone just forgives everything they do wrong and immediately just says it's fine. I'm pissed. Dude, we all bought a game 3 years ago, promised multiplayer, and now we don't get it. Now we got screwed. Like, why do we all get screwed over by Naughty Dog? Who are they? Right? This isn't some fucking high and mighty company. Why are we letting them treat us like this? And why are people going to run out to buy their next game when they didn't deliver on this promise, which they owe us because we bought Last of Us 2? It's bullshit. It actually is pretty upsetting that no one's really up in arms about this, in my opinion. Like, I would be like, nah, I'm sorry. No, you have to live up to your promises just like everybody else. You know, you don't get to just be a dick like that. So, I'm sorry, but, no, I don't give them the pass. I want Naughty Dog to actually deliver on what they promised. And they're not. So, the question is, what's their next single-player narrative-based game? Because they haven't announced anything about it yet. They're claiming it's new. It's a new thing. So, it's not Last of Us. What's it going to be? Right? I don't know. And I don't know if I have confidence in a game developer that went astray with The Last of Us 2, in my opinion, then re-released The Last of Us Part 1 claiming it was a new game when it wasn't. It was literally exactly the same as The Last of Us 1 with slightly better graphics. That was it. Like, that's literally the only improvement. Because I've seen the playthrough. I've seen 2 different playthroughs of it now. It's exactly the same game as real Last of Us 1. There's no gameplay element changes besides tuning your weapons. Everything is exactly the same. It's a complete ripoff of $70. The only people, again, who really made use of that was people who needed the accessibility features. Outside of that, literally every person who bought that game got ripped off. And now they're going back on their promise of the multiplayer game, which is a whole new can of worms. It's like, how many... You know what they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, this is now, you fooled me with Last of Us 2, you fooled me with Last of Us Part 1, now you fooled me with the multiplayer game, so what's next? And why do we keep acting like they're not doing this? I don't understand. The cult of Druckmann continues on, apparently, where people just follow this guy and just kiss his butt. And it's pretty sad. You know, I get it. Neil Druckmann is pushing the studio to make games that are considered very progressive. He's allowing marginalized people and groups to get representation in video games. I'm okay with that. I have no issue with any of the characters or anything that he's done in these games. My issue is, it's pretty unethical the way this guy operates. 3 times in a row now. 3 times he's done unethical, messed up things, and everyone just pretends like he's not. And it actually pisses me off that people let the wool be pulled over their eyes constantly with this guy. You know, I'm sad. I'm sorry. And even the show. Was the show good? Yes. Was the show great? No. The TV show was nowhere near as good as the video game. Too much content was cut to make room for new content that really didn't add much of anything in tandem with what was important in The Last of Us lore. Adding in entire episodes that really didn't mean to be there because he wanted to tell his stories, you know. It's not your pet project. It's supposed to be the story of The Last of Us, and you cut out critical content to have room for stuff that was fluff. So, I don't know, man. It drives me nuts. And again, I guess we'll see what happens. What's the next project? And is everyone going to kiss its butt too? Because it's the next Naughty Dog Druckmann baby. I don't know, but it pisses me off that somehow we're still being fooled by this guy. I say we because we're collectively a gaming community. I'm not. I call this guy out all the time. But everyone else seems to just be like, oh, gets a pass every day. Another pass. It's fine. Oh, no multiplayer game? That's okay. But we paid for it. We paid for the multiplayer game when we bought The Last of Us 2. It was supposed to be part of the package. We were promised that it was coming later. And then they told us, well, it's going to be a different game. And, you know, how do we just forgive and forget this guy so many times? I don't know, man. Anyway, that's the only news story for today.
Go. I got the drip going. 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 It's like a faucet that's dripping. You can't make it stop. So what do you want me to do? Have a mute button that every second I'm tapping the mute button just in case I'm gonna have to clear? Like, this is what I mean. These dumb kids. This is what it is. It's dumb kids.